Heute geht es um das Thema: Ist Agilität tot? Wie geht's weiter? Spannendes Thema. Los geht's! Herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Episode vom Scrum Master Journey Podcast. Dem Podcast, der dir zeigt, wie du als Scrum Master zum erfolgreichen Agile Coach oder Changemaker in deinem Unternehmen wirst. Und ich freue mich heute ganz sowas von, dass ich wieder einen Gast mit dabei habe. Und wir werden aber gleich auf Englisch switchen. Und deswegen ein Gast dabei aus den Niederlanden. Rotterdam, glaube ich, Jürgen, ne?
I'm in Rotterdam, yes.
Yeah, Rotterdam. And so switch to English. So I'm really happy that Jurgen Appelo is with me again. We were just discussing if this is the third time or the second time, and but doesn't matter. And we had a nice topic for today, as everyone is discussing in the moment, at least that in our bubble, I think it feels like everybody's discussing about, okay, is it about descaling Agile, or is it like, okay, Agile is dead and what next and stuff like that. And we decided, why not just have a little chat about this topic? But maybe for people who don't know you yet, which may happen. I don't think in the Agile world, I think lots of people know you already. Maybe give us a little intro who you are and what you do, Jürgen.
Of course. So, hey, Marc, nice to see you again. Indeed, second or third time on this podcast. I don't remember. My memory is quite bad. But doesn't matter. My name is Jurgen Appelo. I'm from the Netherlands. I live in Rotterdam. I once wrote a book called Management 3.0, leading Agile developers, developing Agile leaders. That became a big hit in the Agile community. Well, the rest is history, as they say. I've been a public speaker and workshop trainer and so on since then. Published a couple more books. How to Change the World, Managing for Happiness was also a popular one. So I usually say I'm a writer, speaker, and entrepreneur, because on the side, I dabble a bit with trying to launch startups, sometimes successful, most of the time not. That's what it means to be an entrepreneur. You run experiments, and a few of them work, and most are failed experiments, but you learn a lot from that. And I think in the Agile community, we are also now at that point where we have to discuss and reflect on the state of the community itself. Some things have stopped working, it seems, and we may have to move on to other business models, other words perhaps, instead of the Agile world. Because if I look at my LinkedIn stream, I think I see Agile is dead topics on an almost daily basis these days, whether it is Agile coaches looking for other jobs, Scrum Masters complaining that there's no work anymore, conferences stopping, meetups have cancelled, workshops don't sell anymore, and so on. So apparently there is something big going on. And time for a retrospective, Marc.
Yeah, time for a retrospective. And I still remember when we first met, I think it was as the Agile Eastern Europe in Kiev. And both of us took the bus to the icebreaker party the day, I think, before the whole conference started. Yeah, and this was, I think, right before the Management 3.0 book came out, right? And I would say at the peak of Agile methods, right, where lots of companies were asking for Agile coaches. And that time, I think, it was already enough if you could just spell Scrum, and then they already hired you because, they know how to do it, and they just hired you to get in the company and help them. And nowadays it's a little more tricky, I would say. And for me, it feels like the term Agile is a little bit burned out. And but I remember already in 2012, I think, where I did a training in a company where they explicitly asked me to not use the word Scrum in my training. So I did a whole Scrum training without using the word Scrum. It was really fun. And so they already burned their Scrum implementation in about 10 years ago. So it's really interesting. I think that what happened more or less is that the promises lots of people gave what Agile will help them didn't really come to life. That's what I observe. And of course, if you spend lots of money in these areas and tried lots of things, and you don't get any results and any advantages, then maybe you think about, okay, what could be the next thing to do, right?
Yeah, indeed. And it just occurred to me, a random thought, that I think the beginning of the end was when people started selling courses named Agile Scrum. That annoys me so much when I see someone selling Agile Scrum. It's not Agile Scrum, it's Scrum. That is what it is called, Scrum, not
Yes.
Agile Scrum. It's like calling Ella Fitzgerald Jazz Ella. No, she's not called Jazz Ella, she's Ella.
Yeah,
And
true.
so it just was a sign that there were people selling this who had no freaking clue what this was about, what it was that they were doing. And I think that was a signal of the beginning of the end. Like, okay, now this has become so popular, so important for companies. There's a whole lot of people jumping on the bandwagon who don't even know how to spell the word Scrum, what it means, what the difference is between Agile and Scrum. And I think it has gotten worse since then. And now we get to the point where people discuss, is Agile dead or not? Well, that depends on how you define the word Agile, I suppose.
Yeah, and I would say if we look at the problems we wanted to solve, these are still there, right? So we want to stay innovative as a company. We want to stay in the market. We want to become resilient to any whatever is happening to the markets nowadays. We want to work as effective as possible in an efficient manner, right? And so these things are not gone. We want to have projects in time and budget. And the question is then, why didn't it work, right, with some of the methods that are there? And what I always repeat also in the podcast a lot of time is, for me, Agile is not the solution. Agile is more the diagnosis tool. You look into your company, you find out what is the problem, and then you have to do something about it. But Agile is not the solution. It's just the framework to help you find out what is wrong and then maybe move on and change something. And this is, I think, where most companies and most Agile coaches and Scrum Masters fail, right?
Right. So you have a good point. Indeed, if you define Agile as that what is described in the Agile Manifesto, it is responding faster to change and discussing with customers what they really would like as a better experience. That is still standing. I mean, that is even more important nowadays than it was in the past, particularly with AI and other new developments. We have to respond even faster to change. So the need for Agile and agility has only gone up. But this is not how a lot of people in the world think about the word Agile. They have associated mainly with the tools and processes and methods and frameworks that have been sold under the umbrella term Agile. And for many of those solutions, indeed, it is the time is up. People are not interested anymore in 2-day courses of how to be Agile. I wrote a post a number of months ago, or maybe a year ago already, comparing it with the phase in the 90s where I made a lot of money teaching people how to go on the internet, and how to use Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel. That was the end of the 80s, early 90s, because that was a big business. People had to learn how to hold a mouse. They had never done that before. I had to learn them basic MS-DOS prompts and so on. And that was big business. It was a good place to be at that time. But within a couple of years, the entire business collapsed. Why? Because the industry moved on. It was not that they didn't need Excel anymore. Of course, everyone is using spreadsheets, but they didn't go to 2-day classes to learn how to use a spreadsheet. They just opened it and started working. And nowadays, when I see some people using spreadsheets, I think, well, you could use a course because you could use a trainer because this is awful what you're doing. But because I wrote Microsoft Excel courses, so I know how to use spreadsheets.
Yeah. But this is, I think it's the same topic, right? The Excel and Word are not the solution, right? These are the tools you need to write, for example, a book, or I wouldn't write a book in MS-DOS, but
the tools are still there. And another example I use is the word cyberspace. People use that in the 80s and 90s. We would go into cyberspace. Well, right now we are in cyberspace. Mark, you and I are now conversing in cyberspace, but we're not using that word. That's only a word that old people like me still remember from the days when this was all very new. So I'd sometimes tell people, the word agile is what old people are going to use for this faster response times that organizations need to have to changing markets, which is going to be completely normal from now on. But we're not using the word agile for that anymore. Like fish have no word for water. They don't see it. It's just there. Goodbye to the 2-day classes and the Agile conferences and so on, because I think that was a good phase to have. It was fun. It was successful. It was important that it was there, but the industry is moving on, and maybe that's a good thing, but the agility is still very much needed.
Yeah, you're right. And I think even the newer generation stuff, like maybe it's already in their DNA somehow, right? What fast response means. When you look at how young people using their mobile phones, and I'm still think that I'm young, right? I'm only 47, and I always want to be on the same technology level than my kids. But I can already feel that they are faster in some areas than me, even though I think I'm a little bit of a nerd and know how to do stuff. And so there's the whole mindset that I need to build in maybe 10 or 20 years. They get with the mother milk somehow, right? So they are already raised with that. And they are raised with, okay, I have to adapt faster because there's a new app, there's a new way to do stuff, and then adapt faster. So maybe this mindset is already with some of the younger generations, right? Where other people like me needed a lot longer to get there.
I think maybe the accent is going to change as well, because we are from a generation where we had to be taught how to respond faster to emerging technologies and newer requirements from customers. The younger generation don't need to be taught. The TikTok generation doesn't have to be taught how to respond faster, because they have a fear of missing out culture already. If you're not fast enough, the opportunity is gone. They will have to be taught other things, like how do you handle 20 different communication channels? How do you stay sane in a world that is increasingly multitasking? Those might be the more important topics from now on than responding faster to change. The iteration cycles have shrunk incredibly, but this does something to the human brain. I mean, we are not wired for the age that we have entered into, and I think there is an opportunity to teach humans or help humans not go mad in this increasingly accelerating world where AI is going to be faster than us in writing text, making video, whatever it is that they help us out with. And we have to find and keep our humanity. I think that's a very interesting age that we are now entering into. And responding faster, been there, done that. We can tick that off the list.
And I think that's but still, there are a lot of people our age in jobs, right, where maybe they don't have it in DNA, and I think they still need some support in some areas, right, to be able to respond. Because I think it was 2 or 3 years ago when I read an article that the number of data, not necessarily knowledge, but is doubling every 9 years. I think it's now 7 or 8 years now that the whole knowledge we have in the world is doubling. So nobody is able to get all these knowledge, right? Or to stay on pace and all these areas. That's why we also have more specialists and experts now. Something we also wanted to not to have in an agile team, right? We want to have cross-functional teams where more or less everybody knows everything. But as technology is really moving that fast, it gets more and more difficult to not become a specialist in a certain area because it's so complex now that it's getting tremendously difficult to not go into this trap, right?
Yeah, and at the same time, the halftime of knowledge keeps shrinking. So the time we had to learn a domain and become an expert at it, and then get a return on investment of that knowledge, that was maybe years in the past, and now it is shrinking to months. I mean, we had search engine optimization as a domain. People earned a lot of money in that.
Yeah.
I just read a couple of articles. CEO is dead. Thanks to AI, all the effort that we're going to put into trying to be found through Google. Google is not going to serve up websites anymore. Google is just going to answer the question, like what are the best taco restaurants in Dortmund or whatever. Instead of ending up on a website, Gemini is going to give you the answer. So SEO is useless then. So all that domain knowledge is gone. Are there still any people touting their knowledge in cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin? I think all of them have become AI prompt engineers overnight. Well, guess what? Prompt engineering is almost dead. Because we don't need to engineer prompts. There was a knowledge that existed for less than a year, and then we are already moving on. So this also does something with humans. We have no time to become an expert at something because the technologies have already moved on, and we have to learn something else. And that's why I say we have to learn how to become generalists with temporary specializations in things until the time has moved on and our opportunity is gone, and we have to learn something else instead. I mean, continuous learning was already a thing for a number of years.
Yes.
Humans have to be continuous learners. We knew that, but maybe we didn't realize how much of a pressure AI and other technologies are going to put on us to be continuous learners. So good luck being a specialist in any area, because good chance that next year or the year after, that domain is gone and you'll have to learn something else. It can drive you nuts, really.
Just look at software development, right? I think I would say maybe 10 years ago, I would highly recommend to go into the domain of software development and becoming a software engineer. But now that more and more AI is able to write software, of course, it's maybe not perfect yet, but it doesn't take that long to become better. Maybe at some point in time, you don't need 100 software engineers anymore, some code monkeys, I would call them. You just sit in front of your AI and tell the AI what kind of software you would like to have, if it is an internet or where do you want to have it. And then you just write a nice prompt and have a nice conversation with the AI. And in the background, the whole application is created. And there are already some of these tools out there, right? They're not perfect yet, but also in this direction, there's happening. And of course, a software developer can say at the moment, it's not working yet for the complicated stuff. It's not, maybe not yet, but it's right around the next corner, I would say.
Correct. Yes, you're totally right there. And I think we are now moving to become like conductors in an orchestra of AIs. We are managing. I literally have a team of AIs working with me. I use ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini just to use different language models to see what the different answers are to different prompts and so on. And also just to learn and stay ahead of the game, because people say you don't lose your job to AI, you lose your job to someone else who is better at using AI.
Right.
That you are competing with. And that means that we have to be generalists. We have to be those conductors of the orchestras where we have specialist tools and machines doing certain things very well, like whether just creating graphics or music or scripts or whatever, or writing code, but someone has to bring it all together to make it something meaningful,
Right.
and give it a goal, because the AIs have no goal. They do whatever you tell them, as long as it's legal. and
And even for illegal, there are
that's our
something
job
for it.
as the leaders of the AI team. I think it's exciting in a way. It's also a bit scary, but it's also, I think, a moment of reflection for the Agile community, because that's what we started with. Because teaching people how to do Scrum, yeah, you can have a Scrum GPT now and just ask ChatGPT questions of how to do Scrum in certain situations, and the answers are probably better than what the expensive Agile coach could give you when he or she is available. So we are beyond that now. Though the Agile community has to basically practice what we preached, eat our own dog food, and change to a new situation. So I think that's time for celebration, maybe even. I often say, never waste a good crisis. Well, this is a crisis that the Agile community is in right now. Let's celebrate. Yay. Now we can show the world what it means to adapt. Because we have been telling people for 20 years that they should adapt to changing markets. Now it is us, ourselves.
Yeah,
And
I
some
agree.
people will do that well, and some people won't.
As always, right? So there will always be people running around and say, this is bad technology, don't go there, that costs our jobs. Look at the Industrial Revolution, right? And stuff like that, where people don't want to have the big machines. But as soon as it's getting cheaper to build something with a big machine, then of course we will go in this direction, because we're in a capitalism, right? That we are going there. And the same happens, of course, with AI. As soon as it's cheaper to have an AI than 100 developers, of course, we will go there.
Yeah.
So this will for sure happen somehow. And I had a colleague of mine said, I don't like to change that often, but still the change is happening, right? So it doesn't matter if I like it or not. So the change is still there. So now I have two options. I can go into the woods and build somehow a little house and live in the woods from now on. Or I say, okay, I will have to adapt to change and change my behavior, my job description, the way I do stuff, and go in this direction, right? These are the two options you have.
Yeah. And personally, I think that's exciting. It is also scary. I'll be honest there. It is scary because I have seen that there's less interest in the workshops that I have given, the 2-day workshops, fewer invitations to Agile conferences because there are fewer Agile conferences, and so on. So in a way that could be scary. Like, okay, what's going to happen with my job, my income, and so on. But at the same time, I find it exciting. I'm not that worried about surviving. It's just wondering, okay, what am I going to do next? What is the thing where I can make a difference, where I can add value? And if it is not offering 2-day classes, fine. There are other things that I can be doing that I think will be fun, where demand will be growing, and that is the fun part of this crisis.
Mm-hmm. And I think there will always be industries that won't go away, like entertainment, like gaming, like anything that people want to do in their free time. Maybe if people have more free time, maybe it's a good thing to become a fitness trainer, whatever, because maybe there will be a robot in the future doing that. Can also happen, right? But my wife is a physiotherapist. I don't have any fear at the moment that she will lose their job, because that will take a little more time to get robots doing this kind of work. But yeah, in the IT industry and the industry where we maybe saw 10 years ago is a future-proof thing, is now really in a lot of change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as any time, right, there's this change curve. So maybe some old insurance companies and banks who are maybe now on the top of the curves of Agile, right? But lots of companies are already through and looking for new things. And yeah, it worked selling 2-day courses a few years ago. And but yeah, it's not working that good anymore.
Yeah. And is that a bad thing? I think maybe not. I saw a clip on LinkedIn just 2 days ago that one of the payment companies, I believe it was Klarna, they published a video where they said, we're firing 2,000 people in customer support. They don't need them anymore because all of that is going to be done by AI chatbots. They're becoming better and better. They will be faster in handling user customer requests and solving problems. And I think, is that a bad thing? I think not. Maybe having humans explain technologies to people and have them solve problems for customers is failure mode in itself. If you can solve that problem, you don't need those 2,000 jobs. Those people will have to find some other work to do. Okay, that's part of life. It's creative disruption. It does mean that the company saves a lot of money. That money it doesn't just go to shareholders or whatever. No, they're going to spend it on something else. That investment that they did in customer support, in humans, will then go into AI technologies, other things where Klarna will be able to make a difference compared to their competitors. So someone is going to get that money. The question is, who? What kind of value can we then offer in organizations to customers? Because the chatbots do it now better than customer support agents. Okay, fine. So what else can we do to make customer experiences better and be there instead of being a customer service agent? Well, the same applies to coaches and consultants and workshop trainers. People don't need us anymore to do that kind of work. There is still business. I mean, organizations still exist. They still have problems. There are always problems to solve. Problems will never go away. If you solve one, another two will pop up. So that is a law. Problems will be always there, and people will need help solving those problems. It's just that solving problems through two-day classes is not interesting anymore. We have to solve those problems another way. Maybe online learning, maybe other forms. I don't know exactly. But I do see some signals of what is happening in the market. But for sure, Agile conferences, I think most of them will be behind us. And I'm sad from the perspective of a speaker and participant because it was fun. It was a way to meet great friends that I have made over the last 15 years across Europe and beyond. I may not see them again, or I will have to find other ways of meeting them. But all of us will have to reinvent our value propositions, basically.
Yeah, when I think last time we met was at the Agile World Conference, I think last year in summer, and it was really like a little shock how small the conference become, right? It was at least double the size before Corona.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, we have 2 big rooms and 2 small rooms. That's the whole conference. Like, okay, really, really small now, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't been at the Scrum Gathering or not the Scrum Gathering, the Agile Alliance conference in the US, but also smaller, right?
Also smaller. Scrum Gathering was smaller. Scrum.org was smaller. Everything was smaller. At the XP days in Amsterdam, it was very small. I felt a sort of funeral feeling when I was there. Like, okay, where is the excitement? It was like people were sad and demotivated or something. And it felt like, okay, this might be the last time that this conference is organized. I don't know.
Yeah, this is really, and I also enjoyed like you being on stage and doing a keynote, and that's really fun. And I would like to do
being
this
on stage, Marc. That is fun for me too.
Yeah,
so.
I love it. So I would love to do it still more often in the future.
Yeah.
So, but maybe the topic has to change, and that's the thing, right? And but I still believe, right, the problems we discussed at the beginning of this episode they're still there, right? We want to stay in business. We would like to finish our projects in time and budget and stuff like that. So these things are still there.
Yep.
But the way maybe how we solve this will be different than what we did the last 20 years, right?
Absolutely. And there are a couple of signs I see in the market. For example, at my business, the Unfixed company, we've been running various experiments with partnerships and 2-day classes and even a tool and so on. The one thing that's going well is online learning.
Mm-hmm.
So there is clearly a massive shift towards people paying for their own online classes to be better at something because they want to improve their chances of a promotion, or they want to leave their job and go somewhere else. But that means that they need to upskill in certain areas. So people pay for their own online learning, and they actually pay more for that than they do for non-fiction books, for example. That's another area that's downhill, by the way.
Okay.
I am probably not going to write another non-fiction book anytime soon because I saw the statistics. It is a disaster. The younger generations are not reading books, and they're specifically not reading business books. Yeah. What are they paying for? They are paying for online classes on Udemy, on whatever platforms, and they actually pay more there than they do for the business book. So instead of writing next business book, I should be making online classes. That's what I will. I'm discussing with my team already. Put the effort there.
Yeah.
And that's one change that I see. Another change, which is interesting more at a personal level, we discussed before the podcast. I wrote another book which was a fiction, not non-fiction. My first novel. That's still quite a level, by the way. People still buy novels, apparently. But thanks to AI, I just read an article. There's a lot more crap nowadays. I mean, there's a lot more crappy stuff being published and uploaded to Amazon and so on. That means that I believe people will be looking for stuff that is high quality, of which they know it is not written by AI.
Right.
They want to know that there's a real human being behind this. And as evidence there, I see the number of subscriptions to Substack, for example, these ordinary newsletters that people are actually paying for. This was not a thing. I mean, I have been blogging for many years. People didn't pay for blogs.
No.
People never paid for newsletters. I mean, why would you? Blogs were free. That was what we always assumed. But now when you read blog posts, these days you can almost assume that it was generated by AI because that is so easy to output text. So I am almost not reading blogs anymore because I don't put any value on that because there might be a big chance that it's just AI generated crap. But I did subscribe to a couple of newsletters on Substack. Why? Because that gave me the confidence that there's a real human being behind this who is running this newsletter and who is doing their best to make this human text. And I actually pay for that. And that is a very different dynamic that we are now confronted with. So that is interesting as a new business model. The stuff that I have been giving away for free in the past, I should get paid for that as a human, just to show that I am different from the AI-produced bullshit. So, those are just examples of how markets are changing, and it's fun. As I said before, Mark, I think it's crises are exciting. Figure out where the value is now.
Yeah, it's also more about micro learning than having some 2-day course. When I look at my oldest son, he's now 19. Everything he knows about fitness, and he's really a cool fitness trainer now. He can create fitness plans for me or for any other person if you want to get fit in a certain area. And all the knowledge he got from YouTube and TikTok, right?
Yeah.
He didn't read any books or something like that. That's the way he learned all these things.
Right. Exactly.
So when my wife's always complaining that my sons are spending too much time on their mobile phone and stuff like that, I tell her always, they're not just playing games, they're learning things and stuff, even though it doesn't look like that, because maybe 10 years ago, it was like, okay, if somebody looking at a mobile phone, he's just gaming away or something like that. But this now is the entry zone for lots of people to gain new knowledge in certain areas, right? And that's maybe some people in the 40s and 50s didn't get now because we're still into books, and I still love to read books, right? But also for me, there's so many things are happening in a quite fast time that sometimes you don't really have time to read a big book. Sometimes it's easier to just get a little video out of that. That's why I also like podcasting, because I think in a podcast you can also feel there's a real human behind. He's saying something, telling you something, and it comes from his and not from an AI. Even though I think maybe it's not a big thing to create a AI podcast, right? To have an AI voice doing that. But what I believe is still the human interactions is still something we will value in the future, maybe value even more, that we know these are real musicians, for example. These are real artists. These are real people, actors, for example, in a movie, and not just get generated by somebody. This is a real musician sitting in the piano bar playing on the piano, right?
Exactly.
So these human things, I think, will become more valuable in the future.
I just read an article. Funny that you say that. Just a few hours ago on how AI is getting better and better at writing prose, which is good quality text and even literature books. So the idea, the hypothesis is that we're going to see more books of which we can see that they are written by humans, because that's what we want. Like we pay extra for artisanal, handmade cups and saucers or whatever, because I mean machines can make them for cents, but it has no value to us. But when it is something made by a real human and it is not really perfect, then we pay more because we know a human hand made this. And probably the same is going to apply to novels or other digital books, where we can see, well, there was a real human putting their sweat and tears and everything into this, and I'm willing to support that person. Another thing that you said, by the way, just occurred to me, the switch from books to video. I have a tan because I just came from a long vacation in the Caribbean. And when I researched the islands of the Caribbean where I would be traveling, I'm old school. So the first thing I did was I ordered 2 books. From one book, Lonely Planets, and another book from, I don't know, Rough Guide or whatever. And going through the books, and I noticed it didn't give me the right feel or what I could expect reading the text. And only then it occurred to me, I could also watch some YouTube videos. I mean, that just shows that I am old generation, Mark. My default is books. And then I had to tell myself, you're an idiot. You could watch YouTube videos. There are travel blogs, people who make videos of going to the Caribbean islands or whatever. And then I watched those videos, and that was much better, because then I could see what I could expect or things that I would like or not like. And I never use those books anymore, but I just watch those YouTube videos. So same as with your kids, the learning is better often through video than it is through books. And I am, as I said, I'm old style. I just ordered another book from Amazon, nonfiction, because I like reading. And I have to remind myself every now and then that sometimes it's actually faster to watch a video about a certain topic than just to read a book.
But I always have to smile a bit when my wife always wants to convince my kids. Did you read the book? I put a book for you on there and about mindset. Do you want to read it? And did you already read it? And I always know, no, they won't read it. That's not their way of learning. We have to send them something else. That's why I always send them some Insta videos or TikToks where I believe this is great content for them, because this is what they watch.
Exactly.
that works.
What as a tip for your wife? She should make a video recordings of herself reading the book, put them on TikTok, and then have your kids watch those TikTok videos.
Would work better, for sure. Yeah, but my wife is also bookworm. She always reads books. When you see her in her free time, she always has a big book in front of her nose. That's what she does, right?
Yeah.
Really old school in this area. Yeah, that's really cool. So, what are we doing now? So we are on an agile theme. We have to change. We have to adapt. I believe what you also mentioned somehow is we have to do a lot of experience, right? We have to try things out. We have to find out what works, what doesn't work anymore. And we just have to maybe get lost of some things we did in the past just to try new things. We have to unlearn maybe some certain things.
Yep.
Which, by the way, I think one of the maybe most important future skills, unlearning things you already learned in the past, to be open for new things to learn. And
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's maybe one of our future skills, and maybe also a skill that you can also need, you can also use in 20 to 30 years. Unlearning, I think, will be important skill in the future.
Yeah, that's a good one. It ties into the generalist theme I discussed earlier. I call it or some people call them M-skilled people. Actually, they're the generalists. They go wide and they have some specializations in multiple things. And actually, those specializations, they might replace each other. So indeed, while learning new things, we have to unlearn other things because our head is only so big. That is perhaps a new thing to get good at. How do we replace knowledge? How do we switch from being cryptocurrency experts to prompt engineer experts and then something else next year? Who knows what it is? That is useful to be better at. I see a couple of things. As I said, online learning seems to be doing well. We validated that with my own company, with Unfix conferences. We had an Unfix event last year. We had reasonable turnout, but there seems to be very little interest in the market for more conferences. And also the Agile brand. I just said it a few days ago online on the socials. I hope the brand survives, that because I don't dislike the word. I like the word Agile, but knowing what the rest of the world thinks of the word, how they equalize it or equate it, I mean, with Scrum and Safe and whatever. I think the brand is going to be left behind, like the word cyberspace. And so I'm not betting on the survival of the word Agile, and I'm okay about that myself. I'm ready to move on and learn what other things people will be willing to pay for, because they will be willing to pay for things in order to survive in a hyper accelerating market with AI around us. That's for sure.
I totally agree.
I look forward to that.
Me too. Okay. So I'm as you said, I'm also looking quite positive into the future. Of course, there are some things that something gets some shivers maybe in at your back and think, oh, that looks really scary somehow. But sometimes change looks scary, right? Sometimes it's maybe, if it would be so easy every time, then it's not a real change. So I'm looking positively in the future. Let's see what happens, and let's see where the whole thing is moving on. And keep on unlearning.
Good tip. Thanks for that one.
Thank you, Jürgen, for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I think it was a really cool conversation. And hopefully we see us again at some Agile conference sometime.
I hope there will still be some Agile events, Marc, where we can see each other. If not, I'm sure there will be other things happening that we are not even aware of, where we have a chance of meeting again. But until then, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you, Jürgen. Bye.